Good morning, everyone, and welcome to webinar 6 in the RACV Victorian Tourism Awards. My name is Chris, and thank you for joining us this morning in our final webinar of our webinar series. Hopefully, you've all engaged with some of the webinars as we have gone through them over the duration, but they are all being recorded, so if you've missed any, you can always go back and check those out. So today's webinar is all about our insights into question 4 and question 5, which is customer service and sustainability. And our special guest today is Alicia Brandenburg. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you.
Alicia is one of our most experienced entrants, as well as a judge who joined us on the judging panel last year. We were just chatting around how many entrants she has worked on over the duration, and written winning submissions at a state level and a national level. So welcome, Alicia. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get underway this morning.
Thank you. Well, I am currently a director of Ecotourism Australia, which is something that I'm really quite passionate about. I worked at Parks Victoria for 20 years, doing the best job in the state, I used to say, as the tourism manager. It was fantastic. And as you said, I've been involved in the Tourism Awards ever since I was actually a tourism officer with Ballarat Tourism many moons ago. And we were just talking about the fantastic advent of the technology that allows the portal to really help contestants, when we used to actually have to whiz down the Western Highway with our hard copy submission in our hands, to try to meet the deadline. So the tools and the portal are just so fantastic for the industry now to work with.
Yeah, so thanks for coming along this morning. And I think one of the reasons why we brought Alicia here was because of her experience with Ecotourism Australia and the insights that she can provide, especially in around the sustainability question, which we'll get to in a few moments. But we'll rock right into the questions, and we're going to look at obviously question 4 first, which is all around customer service. So again, this is a 20-point question. So there are 4 parts to this question. We're going to go through each of those individually. As you'll see here, as I've got up on your screen, this is what it looks like in the portal. Down the bottom of the screen, you can navigate through the different sections as you go through. So we're sitting in the customer service tab at the moment. But question 4, as I said, talks about customer service, and question A is describe your customer service philosophy and values. So, it's part of your, do you have a customer service philosophy? Do you have is it part of your mission, or is it part of your vision? Think about your contacts with a visitor and how they are treated at different particular parts of their visit with you or your stay with you. So, Alicia, what are some of the contact points that an entrant might have or might cover here?
Well, I think, the first contact that you have with your potential customer before they become an actual customer is really important. So you'll have your phone or your web inquiry. Do you have a script for your staff? Do you change it constantly? Do you make it current? Do you make it seasonal? How you respond to a booking or an inquiry? What's the arrival service like? Especially if it's a return visitor, do you acknowledge that someone has returned? And don't forget, during and post-visit, all of those make up how your customer is feeling. Do you have time frames or guidelines on your response to an inquiry and to a booking? And do you or your staff have an understanding of any cultural sensitivities that might be with some of your visitors? So all of those make up, first impressions, and first impressions we know count.
When doing our workshops out and about in regional Victoria, and there's been some interesting research done recently with Deloitte that Denise Albrick has been working on from TEVE, and some of the stuff that's come out of that in relation to how visitors are now getting in touch with businesses through social media, and the expectations around response time. So some of the response times that people are sort of expecting is around 10 minutes. So, you have to think about what is your strategy around this. And one of the questions we got asked yesterday out of the workshop was around, well, if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, how do I respond to a response or in 10 minutes at that time unless I'm up and about? So, you know, it's really about what are your procedures and policies that you have in place, and it is really around the structure of what you do. So think about how that would impact or what you do in your business.
And I know Denise is presenting at the Victorian Tourism Conference coming up, so she always has absolutely some valuable insight. So, you know, that's another great reason to attend the tourism conference.
Right. Here's an example of our great friends out at Cave Hill Creek, who have kindly allowed us to show their submission from last year. So Cave Hill Creek won at the state level and also won at the national level for the standard accommodation category. So as you can see here, they really outline quite clearly what their philosophy is and how they deliver customer service at different points. So if you obviously slide down this part of the presentation, so how do we put this into action? It's got before the stay, it's got during the stay, and then it's got after the stay. So, you know, they've clearly really laid out this question, and it really goes to show you how you can, you know, structure this up from an answering perspective. Part B looks at explain how you provide for visitors with specific needs. I suppose the crucial thing or the most important part here is what a specific need is. It's not special needs, it is specific needs. So think more broadly than just special needs when it comes to this question. And this is a really good opportunity where you can use examples and testimonials as part of your answer to show how you've actually met a client's specific needs. They may have sent you an email post-event or put something up on TripAdvisor that actually has, you know, congratulated you or mentioned your the way you've handled a special dietary requirement or an accessibility issue, or it could be a different opportunities there. So Alyssa, some of the specific needs are pretty varied and different depending on business types, I suppose. So,
absolutely.
But what are some of the examples that you can sort of provide around what those specific needs might look like?
Well, I mean, if you have a look at your visitor, if you understand your visitor and what they're doing, especially when they're in your property or in your region, you'll be able to think of ways that you can really add that extra little bit of value. There's the sort of demographics of age, travel groups, dietary requirements, but then there's also things like pet friendly. You know, we know that that's a big, traveling with your dog is a big campaign from Visit Victoria at the moment. So if your property is pet friendly, or your cafe or your attraction, you know, what are you actually doing to make that a really dog friendly venue? Catering, we talk about as an example with the Great Ocean Walk, we worked with the operators to say, well, how do you respond to a walker market? You know, do you have some packed lunches? Do you provide an area for drying of boots? So think about what those sort of special reasons are that visitors might be coming to your region and how you can make their stay just that little bit special by catering to a special need. You know, there's a big mountain trail bike infrastructure push going on in the state, and that's going to attract a lot of mountain trail bikers. What do mountain trail bikers, you know, need when they're looking at coming to the region to stay? So having a look at those sorts of things, as well, of course, as your special needs for accessibility, for families, for hens nights, for different sorts of groups, really add that extra value.
And I suppose it's also important as well to look back at who your actual target markets are and think about it from the target market perspective, what their special needs are, what their specific needs are that you can be meeting and can be delivering on. So keep that in mind when you are answering this question. Moving into part C, describe how you measure customer satisfaction and identify areas for improvement. So what are the tools or systems do you have in place to measure your customer satisfaction? You know, is it feedback forms, visitor books, social media, satisfaction surveys? Alicia, the use of examples really assist in answering this question.
Yes, and don't forget, this is a good example of a two-part question. So we come back to that, you know, one of the core tips right at the beginning is answer the question. The judges want you to answer the question. So I always think back to my English Literature HSC, which I know is dating me, but, you know, always answer the question and look for those two-part questions. You do have to answer both parts. That's what the judges are looking for. But definitely examples and case studies. This is a fantastic question to use an example. I mean, judges understand that, you know, things can go a little bit wrong, or things can not be perfect. Nothing's perfect. But a good example of how a problem has been identified, how has it been, how did you find out about it? What did you do to fix it? You know, make sure you close the circle on that case study, and then how you've either implemented a short-term fix or taken something long-term. So don't be frightened about, you know, putting forward something that was, you know, really quite sort of meaty and even you know, most problems are unexpected. But use it as an example to show how adaptable you are in your business to responding to feedback and complaints.
Yeah, and I could just reiterate what Alicia said there. You know, if you look at one of those really big challenges that you have had in your business and how you actually got over it and got through it to you know, offer a better experience for everyone within your business. I've got a bit of an example here again from the team at Cave Hill Creek. So, you know, they looked at their client feedback through a client survey on departure. They got their face-to-face feedback, so, you know, just the personal approach in terms of asking their guests and talking to their guests, and, you know, just using examples. So the use of quotes and things in there, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to be a screenshot or something. You can actually just type in the quote that you do have, as you can see down the bottom of that screen there, and actually just, you know, say who it's from. You might even want to put a date on it so it has some relevance to time as well, and make sure anything you are referencing within the document is within the qualifying period. So again, we always like to remind people that, you know, we've still got well, if you're watching this live, you've got 24 days left in June. So there are things you can start to be implement now from a customer service and a measuring perspective. That's only going to bolster your submission, but also make your business hopefully run a bit better as well, because you're understanding your customers a bit better. But you know, a nice easy example, you can lay this out in a table as well if you really wanted to, because as Alicia highlighted, it is that two-part. So it's a nice, easy, clear way that judges can really see how you know, how you are measuring that success. Part D, the final part of question 4, worth 5 points. There has been a slight rewording of this question. I do remind people as well that just with what we're running through here today, most of these questions are similar throughout all the categories, but there are slight differences between the categories. So just be mindful of that when you are answering questions for your specific category, that you're not going solely off this presentation today. Make sure you download the questions from your category. But part D looks at your processes. So what processes do you have in place to respond to customers' complaints both online and offline, and manage your online reputation? So this used to read, what processes do you have in place to respond to customer complaints? So it has been bolstered up, but what's come with that though is also a much more in-depth tip. And Alicia and I were just talking about this a bit earlier around how they've really tried to flesh out the tips this year, especially in the next question we're going to be going through, that really helping you as a writer and as an entrant to be able to answer and understand what these questions are asking. So the tip here provides a lot of detail. So make sure you understand that it is a 3-part question. Answer all parts of this question. I don't think you should get too hooked up if you're sitting there going, I don't have a reputation management strategy. Don't get too hooked up on that, because what you're probably already doing is you know, part of a strategy anyway. So think about the processes that you're doing. Just use the awards process to really formalize some of this as a bit of a strategy. So Alicia, from your perspective, what do you think an entrant should be considering here?
Well, I think the word process is really important, and as you've mentioned, it is a chance to maybe document or review any documentation that you have. Process really means a considered and documented approach. So again, don't get too caught up on the wording around reputation management strategy. You know, you will have all the elements of what you're doing when you're responding to complaints and managing, you know, comments, especially online. Look at those different elements of the question, make sure you answer them. A couple of things to consider is how do you empower your staff to deal with a complaint? Do they have the opportunity to resolve it on the spot if it's of a certain nature? What triggers are there for escalation? So some of those things are really important in dealing with all manner of complaints. And sometimes we might think that a complaint is minor, but sometimes they're the ones that can sort of grow in an online environment as well. So empowering staff to resolve issues is a really important thing, and a great way to showcase, especially sort of in your training manuals and things like that. How are you tracking customer satisfaction? How are you monitoring? What timing are you monitoring it on? Is it a regular basis, or is it just when you think maybe something has gone wrong? And then how you're documenting that, and then how you're taking steps to improve.
And it's all forms of feedback as well. So online, offline, face-to-face, someone coming up to your counter, having a complaint, what's the process for that? Getting a TripAdvisor review that's negative, how do you respond to that? It could be a positive review, it could be a negative review. Do you respond to X percentage of positive reviews, but all of the negative reviews? So, think about what you're doing and how you are actually responding across all facets of your business, and then how you're actually tracking that. So.
Yeah, and one of the ways to initiate for the future might be looking at things like a mystery shopper, but just understanding that that's a structured process as well. So it's one of the tools that you have. There are a lot of tools out there that can help you monitor, how your business is performing and what view people have of your business.
And you can just get a mystery shopper. You can just be a friend that's not known to the business and get them to come through and do it for you. So it doesn't have to be a costly exercise either. So there are ways around doing these things and measuring these, how your teams are performing, I suppose. So that's question 4 and a bit of a snapshot there. If anyone has any questions, I do encourage you to ask those as well as we go through. There is the question box there, and utilise that functionality. But we'll crack right along now, and as I said, we're going to go into question 5. So there have been some changes to this question as well this year. As mentioned in a previous webinar with the marketing question going up to 25 points, they've basically stolen, I suppose, 5 points from the sustainability question. What that does is basically make each of these parts of the question 5 points each, where I think previously it was 7, 7, and 6 or something like that. So just be mindful now around the points allocation for this question. So it is only worth the 15 points as opposed to 20. So think about how you're spending your word allocation, and apply that accordingly throughout this question. As we also mentioned previously with the last part of the question, the tips have been greatly improved. So for those of you who have entered in the past, it used to be, 1 sentence tip, but now they've really bolstered up what these tips look like to really provide you with the necessary information to, answer these questions, well. So I suppose question 5 looks at 3 different parts of your business and your sustainability. So it is environmental, and that's part C, and we'll get to that shortly. But it also looks at your contribution to the local economy, and then also your contribution to the local community. And there is, I suppose, distinct variation there. So I suppose it is getting a bit of an understanding around the differences that the 2 parts A and B are actually asking, and understanding those. So with this part of the question, demonstrate how your business contributes to the local economy. Alicia, have you got any thoughts on how the businesses should be answering this question?
Look, I agree with you, Chris. The tips in this section are fantastic. I was really impressed. They've been amped up a lot. They give a lot of insight into how businesses can respond to these questions, these 3 questions in this area. And I think given the emphasis now on sustainability, it is a question that does require a sophisticated answer now. There are so many things that businesses, no matter what size, can do to reduce their impact on the environment and support the community, and also to to be part of sort of their regional community, so or city-based community. So I think there are so many ways that businesses now, as we do in our personal life, look at what we're doing, in regard to our behaviours and the impact that they have. So I think judges will be, and I know that I particularly will be, looking at this question and looking for, the basics, of course, but also maybe looking for that extra step now that I know a lot of the businesses are taking. I know the tourism industry is actually, leading a little bit in this area.
I'd really highlight as well here the tip where you can see there on the slide that it says this is always best presented in a table. So I take that advice on and actually really focus on that as a good way of laying out this question. It's also important here to include, from an economic point of view, a dollar amount or a percentage amount of what your contribution is back to the economy. Here's another example from Cave Hill Creek again, the areas that they've contributed to the local economy. So they talk about attracting visitors to the region, they purchase locally, we employ locals, local training services, guests to other attractions and events, and they also promote local produce. So
yeah, I have a couple more as well. I mean, they're great, really great examples, and we thank Cave Hill Creek for allowing us to use their responses as an example. Provenance is becoming more and more important. So again, if you're buying something local, make sure that you let your visitors know that maybe in your compendium where you're getting your maybe your local jams from, or if you're buying your soft furnishings locally, or some of your artwork, let them know, because that's really important, and that's what the market is looking for these days. And there is more awareness now about the supply chain. So if you know that your suppliers are also applying sustainable practices, well, this is a good area to showcase that in as well. So again, this is part of a global trend. But something that no matter what size business, you can always sort of raise what you're doing and also showcase it to your visitors. Numbers are good here, as you've said, and percentages, and any commitment to employ locally, to use local services as well, whether it's for infrastructure builds or for refurbishing. All of those things contribute to, sort of how you contribute to the local economy, as well as participating, in the activities of your local or regional tourism boards in relation to cooperative marketing. So they're a really good way to contribute to your economy. And the way I look at this question is it's through the lens of a bit of a dollar. So those things that you do in a business sense that contribute. So it's very important.
I think, and as Alicia highlighted, you can see here in this example, my blue blobs on the screen there are the times that they've mentioned dollar values and percentages and references like that, which actually just go to support the answer. As we've mentioned all the way throughout these webinars, judges sign confidentiality and conflict of interest agreements, so you can be trusted, I suppose, in the assurity that the information that you do put into these presentations and into the submission does remain confidential. But that's what the judges want to see. They want to see the actual numbers and the actual figures to just really back up what you're saying from from your points perspective.
And don't forget about the partnership and packaging opportunities as well. Even if it's 10% off at the local pub for dinner, or I stayed at a fantastic bed and breakfast in regional Victoria, and they actually had the coffee loyalty card for the people to use. So we could sort of use that to, and even sort of carry forward and leave a few coffee credits for the next visitor. I mean, it was just a really good way of, again, sort of creating your ripple effect in your local economy.
Fantastic. Part B of this question, as I said, looks at your impact on the local community. community. So demonstrate how your business engages with and brings benefits to the local community. So again, this is a two-part question. So how do you engage, and then what are the benefits? So again, another nice way of being able to lay out this question could be a table, if that works well for you. So think about how you're going to answer that. Alicia, what can business be doing to show it engages in the local community?
Well, I think the tourism industry has a great track record of participating with community groups by offering, prizes for charity, for the local football club or the Lions Club. They really are engaged with offering up, their products to help raise funds maybe for raffles, for school raffles, and that's really showing that sort of corporate community spirit. I think also about understanding and knowing your region and creating networks, so that if you can't particularly help a particular request, maybe you're at capacity, that you actually provide a recommendation to a local business that can help. It's about keeping that person in the region that little bit longer, making them feel welcome, but also helping out. We used to talk about a walk-on policy in the accommodation industry, which is a sort of a very old term, but it used to be that if an accommodation business was booked out, that they used to have a bit of a walk-on with another local accommodation business, and the concierge used to actually physically walk them with their bag to the next sort of hotel in a CBD environment. So think about what is your sort of walk-on policy. Who would you recommend and maybe have a relationship with in a packaging sense or partnership sense about trying to keep that person in the region, because that's what you really ideally want. You don't want them then thinking that they have to make a decision to travel to an entirely other destination for their weekend away or for their business needs. Participating with your visitor information centre, inviting volunteers and staff to have a look at your product, offer a morning tea, even being engaged with the VIPs that might come to town. Your chambers or your city often have VIPs from international or sister city relationships. Being a part of a program like that's really fantastic. Working with and acknowledging the traditional owners is a really important way that you can, sort of be very aware of the history and the community that you're based in, and just being active. Being active in the tourism industry is a great way that you can participate.
I think there's probably a lot of things that everyone is doing that can go into this question, and I think looking at this tip again, Alicia and I were talking on the way in how good this tip is, and trying for us to add more value to more than the tip was difficult for us because the tip is so good. So just thinking about some of the things that you could be doing that is actually mentioned there, mentoring, speaking at schools, work experience, all that kind of stuff that businesses are probably out there doing already, but you don't necessarily think it fits in a particular area, or you just don't think to mention it because it's just what you do as part of your day-to-day. So really unpack what you do from a day-to-day perspective and see where you can plug it in, because you're probably doing a lot of this stuff already that can really help to bolster your answer here.
And you might be doing things in a team environment with your staff as well. There's lots of challenges and special days out there that you can really use in a team environment that adds good value to your community as well. There's things like planting days, special sort of challenges. So think about that as well. Think about how your team can also participate in the impact that you make in your community.
Great. One more.
Well, we've got a question. We've got a question. Woohoo!
Let's have a look. I think we can
good to know someone's listening.
So you can read that, Alicia. You can see that on the
I have to put my glasses on to read that. Is the content of this question same as events 5A? How does your festival event involve and inspire your local community?
The specifics of the question, it sounds similar because it is talking about what you're doing from a local community perspective. So the short answer to that would be yes.
Just think about it though. in the sense of, in this question, we're looking about, you know, sort of economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, and community sustainability. So in an economic sustainability, if you're packaging for a special event, you know, or a community event, if you're offering, you know, packaged up deals targeting that, then this would be able, you know, events and festivals would have a role here. If you're providing, and if I just flick back to the customer service, if you're providing your guests with things that are going on in town while they're here, I think that's really important. It's often difficult to uncover the next layer of, you know, local bands or music festivals or art galleries that might be on in town that your visitor might actually have an interest in. So think about that. Again, in the community section of the sustainability question, it's about, you know, is the festival looking for, you know, some prizes, or is there a competition involved that the business can contribute to? And in the local community, you know, is it a festival that is linked to a community-based organisation like a Lions Club or a football club, or a local charity?
The one I've seen there is with the local CFA, where they get the CFA to come and manage the car park, and so they do a gold coin donation for parking or something or other, and the funds are all raised for the local CFA. So
and the surf club offering the lunch, you know, offering to do the lunches for, you know, particular events and groups.
So hopefully that's helped with that part of the question, but I'm happy to take anything offline as well if you have any other specific questions in relation to individual nuances with the different categories. Part D looks at the environment, so describe how your business cares for the local environment. Alicia, this is your expertise, so I'll hand over to you to talk a little bit in this local environment space.
Well, I wouldn't, you know, go too far to say expert, but certainly a passion point of mine. And again, it's very topical at the moment, Chris, regarding the impact that we personally, as well as our businesses, have in the environment. So I would think that this question would allow businesses to really have unfold and tell us their stories about what they're doing in regard to waste management and energy management, but also to maybe think about the more in-depth activities and actions they've put in place in the last 12 months that take it to maybe a next level. And I think that's regardless of business size. You know, there's just as much that a small business can do and often have the power to do that can really make a big change, as well as some of the bigger players in the industry. So I would look at it as a bit of a tip about through two lenses. And one is, what are the activities and actions do you take to lessen the impact your business has on the environment? And remember, I think quantifiable measures in this section are really important, especially if you can measure something over a period of time, whether it's month by month or year on year, and using your numbers, your weights, your percentages. I think that's really, it shows that reduction in impact. So that can be a really nice little way to use your tables and your examples. And the other way is to try and look at it from the plus side of the equation. So what do you positively do in your business with your guests or with your staff that actually might contribute to improving the environment that you're operating in, or the bigger environment? So one is about reduction of impact, and the other is about, you know, increasing maybe the natural values or the improving the environment. So again, you know, having a look at those two things, you can start to maybe sort of, you know, categorize those, and that lends itself to a table as well. And, you know, as a judge, we love tables because they're nice and clear. We love figures, we love percentages, but we also like a little bit of storytelling. So I see this as a little bit of a passion point. So, you know, there's really interesting ways here that businesses can tell a little bit of a story. So front of mind categories, I think, across some fairly, you know, sort of well-known areas of waste, water and fuel management. But don't forget about decisions that you may have made in construction or upgrading relating to your material choice, your uses of paints, your sort of reduction in toxins and things like that. We know that that's very much a key sort of opportunity now, and the choices out there regarding choosing environmentally friendly products is immense now. So think of those things. There's also an expectation from your visitors now. So see it as an opportunity that actually links to your marketing as well. We know that the market are changing their own personal behaviours to reduce their impact on the environment, and they're expecting where they spend their money for those businesses to have similar values. So think about the way that you tell those stories about what you're doing, because it is a marketing opportunity as well. How do you actually encourage your guests to be sustainable while they're visiting or using your attraction or eating out at your venue? Think about that. And some of those things are, fairly what we would regard as basic now, bin systems, encouraging, responsible water use. But don't forget about your public transport information. Maybe you offer some bikes for people to use, walking maps, even safe, sort of jogging routes are often fantastic. Of course, no single-use plastic anymore. Get those canvas bags out, or my mother's string bag coming back in fashion. If you wait long enough, everything comes back. Maybe provide some eco water bottles or keep cups, paper straws. Do you have a compost? Do you encourage your visitors, maybe if it's a self-contained sort of venue, somewhere to, put the food scraps? I used to have a worm farm, which I used to sort of put all my food scraps into, and then I had my worm juice for the garden, so that was all fantastic. And of course, reduce your packaging. This is a really big one at the moment. So look at your purchasing, look at the things that you're offering your guests, and is there a way that you can reduce the packaging? The other thing that I think it would be great for award submissions to look at is how you're working with your staff to reduce your whole impact as well. Do you provide some bike facilities and some change facilities for your staff? Do you provide some public transport incentives? How are you reducing your paper? Paper. How are you encouraging maybe carpooling, your team building exercises? Are you doing something that might be environmentally sustainable, like a tree planting exercise, or working with a local conservation group in monitoring? How do you manage, your sort of pest, plant and animal procedures around your venue? What furniture or assets do you no longer need? Landfill is such a big issue, council recycling. We know what, terrible situation we are in here now. So let's try and get at the front of that chain and reduce the amount that has to be potentially going to landfill or can't be recycled. Is there another part of the business that can use those chairs or that desk or, those sort of stationary items or things that, or can they be donated to local charities or schools? So think about that. And the other one that I would think about is, do you do some participation, which is about making your donations? So don't forget about that side as well. And the other one is about if you have a garden, and I know that this is very much becoming a trend as well, is making those thoughtful selection of your plants that minimise water use, require low maintenance, and they create sustainable habitats for wildlife, and they cope with climatic change. So that's a bit of a win-win if you have the opportunity to be planting, more Indigenous and native species. And promote all these activities to your staff. I actually treated this like a bit of a homework last night, and I got quite excited about all the opportunities that you actually can have in your business to reduce your impact and then on the plus side, improve the environment. So sorry, I rabbited on a bit about that, Chris.
There's so many tips
Passion
in that.
point
Hopefully
there.
you've been sitting there just writing madly away, or come back and watch this again later. Because again, there's probably a number of bits and pieces that you're already doing that, you know, can really just go into this question, you know, quite smoothly, but get you thinking about other areas as well that you may not have been considering as part of your business, but you're already actually doing it anyway, and can actually really bolster up your submission. And you did have one more image that we wanted to show, Alicia, which I'll flick across to now. So
yeah,
bags of rubbish, is this just what you've left?
This is, you know, after a big Saturday night in the Alicia household. No, this is, and again, I think when we're looking for, because the questions require evidence, you know, and the ability to have a picture that says 1,000 words is really powerful for the judges as well. Now, this is from the Qantas Zero Waste flight. That was operated, I'm sure we all read about it last month from Sydney to Adelaide. Now, the bags at the back are the normal Sydney to Adelaide flight rubbish that would be going to landfill. And the bag at the front, after a considered effort and thoughtful process, is what the bag was from a zero waste flight. Now, just to be able to see that, and they, you know, Qantas are to be commended for this, but just take this as an opportunity to see how they're talking about it and how they're visually representing it as well, because it's a good news story, and we can all look to see how we, with you know, a considered effort, and I'm sure those people on the flight saw no difference in their experience from Sydney to Adelaide. So have a little bit of a think about that.
Yeah, it's great, and that whole use of an example through images is a fantastic way of actually, as Alicia said, an image says 1,000 words, but use the images wisely. You've got 25 of them that you can use throughout. So can you highlight or showcase one of your sustainability practices that you are doing through an image, and really bring the point home to the judges that you are doing some great stuff.
I also, because on the weekend, saw a fantastic article in Delicious called, which is one of the inserts that comes in the weekend papers, and it was about the impact of food waste. So it was about Ground Zero, and you know, there's some initiatives there that are, you know, very committed and sort of trying to actually have a sort of zero waste output from a food point of view. But there are a lot of tips in that I found that I thought, well, lots of businesses would be able to institute. And we actually have a national food waste strategy in Australia. I mean, who knew that? But anyway, so that was launched 18 months ago. So there's some great tips around that. And maybe we could, you know, pop this article up on the website, Chris, because I thought it was a fantastic and very interesting read.
Good example. So folks, that's a really in-depth look at both question 4 and question 5. Hopefully you've taken a lot out of that from preparing your answers and things for your submission this year. I do just want to make, I've got another point.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that evidence of accreditation and certification is really important to the judges as well. And I think in this particular area, it really holds stead for the programs that are out there for your businesses to be measured against, you know, the sustainable goals, and for things like ecotourism and the ATEP accreditation, and that it is really important, and it validates and it's helpful for judges. So think about those things that you do participate in and are measured, especially by third parties. It really does add weight, and I encourage all businesses to definitely be either certified and accredited with your TIC or with organisations such as Ecotourism Australia.
Yeah, fantastic. That sort of leads me into this next point anyway, and with the greater integration of the Quality Tourism Framework, what was the old ATAP program, and the Tourism Awards. I wanted to shout out a bit of a reminder of a new entry requirement this year, which businesses do need to complete. If you're a business that's not in the accommodation sector, you just need to complete the business standards. If you're already accredited, then you don't need to worry about this because it's already recognised and picked up in the system. But make sure you do go through and look at these business standard questions and actually complete those in unison with your award submission. So you have to have that as a minimum entry standard. If you're an accommodation provider, you do need to do both the business standards and the accommodation standards. So just be mindful that these will take a little bit of time, but as a nationally run organisation or competition, it is one of the minimum requirements now that businesses complete these minimum standards. If you're already a star rated property, then you don't need to worry about the accommodation standard side of things. So a couple of extra advantages, I suppose, to being either accredited or star rated through the Quality Tourism Framework program. So, but keep that in mind that those tabs are there at the top of your screen. You will need to complete those before submitting. So make sure you do spend the time in actually completing those. And there are user manuals and things online as well that you can download to help you go through the process. Just some final bits and bobs to just remind everyone of. We are running one more I suppose, panel session that we're going to do later this month on the 27th of June down at RACV City Club from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. What we're pulling together is a bit of an expert panel for a Q&A session. We haven't really done this before, but we're bringing together a mentor, one of our national judges, one of our project officers, and one of our entrances, or one of our past entrants as well. So we're going to have a great panel there, and the whole idea of this is spend some time working on your submission over the next 3 or 4 weeks, and come to that session with your questions. As part of the registration process, we're asking if you have a question to let us know beforehand, so we can actually collate some information together beforehand and actually have a really worthwhile discussion with a really highly tailored expert panel over a couple of hours. So remember, you can register for that through the Victorian Tourism Awards website. So jump online and register for that, and come armed with your questions that you might be having. So spend some time looking at your submission. Hopefully over the last 3 or 4 weeks, you've started to look at your submissions as we've gone through each of the individual sections. Remind you about the mentor program, which exists for experienced entrants as well. You can download forms for that. There is the Project Officer Support Program for first-time entrants run through the Regional Tourism Board. So speak to your Regional Tourism Board or come to myself, and we can hook you up with the right people there. And I'm also very pleased to announce that we have a new team member on board assisting with the Tourism Awards, Michelle Delava, who some of you may know has come on board to help us run the Tourism Awards program for the remainder of this year, which is great. So for a lot of the inquiries now, she'll be the point person and coming out to a lot of entrants and things. So we're very excited to have Michelle on board again to really ramp up our support back to entrants, to ensure that you guys are preparing the best submissions and have the best chance for success at the state level, but then also at the national level as well. We really love to see Victorians do well at a national level. But thank you, Alicia, for your time this morning and for your hints and tips and lots of different information. I'm sure all of the entrants are a lot more better off for your experience.
Oh, gee, hope so. Thank you very much, and I'd also like to thank VTEC for the opportunity. VTEC and Ecotourism Australia have a really fantastic relationship. We work together on a number of sort of different areas, and we have great conversations, as Ecotourism does with a number of other TICs around Australia. But it's been really good. I've really enjoyed it, and I really encourage everyone to sort of, take the time. Sometimes it can seem like a mountain to get your tourism award submission in, but it's such a vital part of the industry, and you've all got such great stories to tell. So please, lean in and get your submissions in, and that's fantastic.
Thank you, Alicia. There doesn't seem to be any final questions coming in through the system, so a couple of just shout outs to thank you obviously to RACV for coming on board again as our naming rights partner, Visit Victoria for supporting this program fully through VTIC, and the great team here at WebFirm who have helped us deliver these webinars over the past 6 weeks. I hope you have enjoyed these webinars. Hope you're going to find them useful as we go through the process of completing your submissions. But that's us for now for webinars. We're signing off. You won't be seeing me next Thursday for a change. But thank you for tuning in and being a part of the webinar series. All the best with your completion of your submissions, but don't be a stranger. The VTIC team are here to help, and we look forward to working with you through this process, submitting entries and seeing you at the gala. Two final things to mention: nominations due 30th of June, so make sure you get your nominations in before then, and submissions are due 6th of September. So thank you, everyone. We will look forward to working with you over the next couple of months.
Bye-bye.